I heard. What did that mean? We heard you. So we're okay or not?
There's 9 watching.
We have 9 watching. Right now we're not streaming live.
There we go. Oh, it bounced.
We're okay now.
Okay, thank you. I would like to, before we go in, I understand there is no public comment on closed session. Is there anybody who wished to call in on public comment on closed session? Give you a couple of seconds while I tell you that Mr. Strand is on his way here. He'll be in about 5:15. We will be in the back and he will be joining us then. But just so you know, we're not going without him or ignoring him. He will be here in a little bit. Okay, I see nobody calling in for comment on closed session, so we will go into closed session with 2 items. Thank you all. Mike, are you on, and Keith?
I'm on.
Keith, are you on?
Yes, we're on. You sound very faint.
Okay. And Dave, are you on? Are you on, Dave?
Yes, this is Dave. I
Okay.
was fumbling with my mute
All right.
button. Yeah.
Where's Ron?
Right there.
He's right there.
Oh, sorry, Ron. Okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. And if we would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Dear Lord, be with us as we make decisions that are going to impact our lives for a while, and understand that we all are here because we are community. And we know that you're going to guide our thoughts, our decisions, to do what's best for everyone in this community. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, City Attorney's report, please.
Certainly, Madam Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss the items identified on the agenda. The City Council received a report from the City Attorney regarding those items, and no reportable action took place. Madam Mayor, that concludes the report.
Okay, before we come into public comment, I would like to tell you that we have pulled item number 7 off the agenda. Staff asked us to pull it because we have some items that are not in, and we're waiting for some prices, and we did not think it was appropriate to try to make the decisions without full information. So item number 7 is pulled off the agenda. Okay, so public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, and the public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Let me say one more thing. That item will be back on the agenda at the second meeting in November. So, is there anyone who's calling in that wants to speak under public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Caller?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. This is Richard Wagner. I just want to say thank you for clearing the bike path. You guys were out there working hard last week, and we got it all cleared. I really appreciate that. I don't know who to thank. Again, the trucks weren't marked with city emblems, so I don't know if it was Parks and Recs or streets or whatnot, but I just want to thank you for making that happen, and Mr. Strand and everyone for making that happen. That's it.
Thank you. What a nice thing to say, because so often you hear the criticism and sometimes you don't hear the compliments. So on behalf of staff and the council, I say thank you. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who is wishing to call in on item and make comments on items that are not on the agenda? Is there anyone in the public who would like to make a comment on items that are not on the agenda at this time? Please come forward to do so while we're waiting to see if we get any other calls.
Yes, good evening, Council, Mayor. And,
Good evening, sir.
been a long time coming, but we're here. Wish I had more than 5 minutes because there's a lot I would like to say. However, I will be endorsing some candidates for council and mayor, and
Sir, I don't think this is the time to announce those if you intend to.
I'm sorry?
This is not the time to announce
not?
those if you intend to.
I'm not
You
going
may do
to.
so on your own time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I don't see what the problem is. But anyway, I would just want to call your attention to the fact that at the end of the month, the 31st of October, Father John J. McGivney, founder of the Knights of Columbus, will be beatified. That is, he becomes a saint in the eyes of Catholic Church. And I think that we'll have a website where you can tune into it if you want to look it up. There's been a lot of talk about tearing down statues of Columbus because, oh, he did some naughty things to the natives. Well, did he or didn't he? I don't think he did. But we have no way of proving that. But at the same time, if you go back in history and look as to why Columbus was sailing west, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of people don't understand this. They used to go, Europeans used to go to the Middle East for their spices and stuff way back when, and the Arabs invaded Turkey just a few months or years before Columbus decided to sail. And that put a roadblock to the Europeans traveling back to the Middle East, or the Far East, as they called it. And that's why, basically, Columbus was sailing west, because he theorized that the world was round, and that if he went west, he could get to India and so on without going that particular route. So there you have it. I would also like to mention that the website for the city keeps getting worse. I don't know. Maybe it's my computer. Maybe I got a glitch or bug or something on my computer. But I used to be able to go to the city council and find the agendas.
They're there, sir.
And no, just a minute.
Oh, sorry.
There is a link for agendas, but the city council one is not there as such on the way it used to be. So I don't know. Maybe
Mr.
we
Matthews,
need to
you
redo
may
that.
need to check your drop-down box selection, and then that it might have saved it from before. But if you send Gary or Matt Freeze an email, they might be able to help you navigate that too.
And you know, also, Mr. Matthews, so this is Kyle Blades. The chief's offering to show you where it is if you'd like some assistance.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I guess that's about all I have here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. People, those of you who are calling in or listening to us, please mute your phones before you come back on the line. We can hear people moving around, and it's very disconcerting to hear people talk. So please mute the phones. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak under public comment on items not on closed session, not on the agenda? Is there anyone calling in? Oh, I see one coming up, okay.
Are we allowed to take this off while we talk? Okay, good. Eric Bruin, 208 Barbara Avenue. Thank you for giving me the chance to be heard. I've been pretty vocal today through social media, and I just wanted to make the comments heard at council over the disappointment of pulling item number 7. And I have a couple of reasons for that, and that is that we were told about 3 weeks ago, I was on that quality of life call, that we had 9 weeks to get this grant project together. And I was able to put together a group of 490 people to get them mobilized, to get them excited, to get them energized for this opportunity. We could have had a discussion tonight. Whether staff was ready with numbers or not, which I was told very clearly last night, repeatedly, that they did not have those maintenance numbers, and therefore that was a reason to pull it, because we didn't want the public to challenge us on it. That's not an excuse to stop a discussion. You could have chosen to not vote on the resolution. That would have been a perfectly reasonable choice. You could have at least allowed the public the opportunity to have the comment. You did this before with the casino. It's about transparency and about providing the opportunity for discussion. There are a lot of people who are very excited about the possibility this grant brings forward to our community. And I believe that it provides an opportunity for us to accomplish a lot of things, which is one of the reasons why I'm running for the opportunity to serve on that dais with you. But to pull the item and to say the staff pulled the item, which they did, fair enough. The 25 times I heard last night that I want it pulled didn't happen. But the fact is that pulling the item closes off discussion, and there was absolutely no reason to close off discussion today. You could have allowed the public to comment. You could have allowed them to express their views and their desires, as well as those people that have concerns about maintenance costs. And you could have made a choice to vote or not to vote. But pulling it, kicking it down, punting it on the other side of the election, it was political machinations. That's all it was. And I saw it firsthand. And I wouldn't stand up here and say it if I didn't see it. But the fact is that that's not the way we want this city to move forward. So I encourage everybody who's on the phone or who's watching, call in. Tell this council how important the city is. Tell them why this agenda item shouldn't have been pulled. That's all I got to say. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. I do know that staff asked for it to be pulled, and I understand that, and rarely do we tell staff that they're dead wrong. But for us to look at something, and I know this is not a time to discuss it, so we're not supposed to be discussing it, but to try to make decisions with not all the information is a terrible precedent to work with. Sorry. Okay. Mr. Neal?
Yes, Mike Neal. Okay, Peggy, you're going to enjoy this. This is one of those times when I agree with you completely. I also agree with the staff.
Thank you, sir.
And I would have been one of the guys up here saying, you know, why are we discussing this when you don't have all your information ready? So, you know, I think this was the right thing to do, not to waste a bunch of people's time. When, you know, how can you discuss a 30-year financial obligation without any numbers to present to the public? Mr. Strand can't do that.
There were numbers.
That's why you pulled it, wasn't it? So, there you go.
There were numbers.
Pardon?
There were numbers. There just wasn't all the numbers.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You need to have a complete financial picture when you're going to discuss things like this. And you didn't. And so, you know, really not a big deal. You can come back when the staff's ready and they got all their act together, they got all the numbers together, and it got everything in front to be put in front of the public, you can't really discuss a subject with partial information. So we need to have it all, and then we can have the discussion. It's just as simple as that. Political machinations are a figment of Mr. Bruin's imagination. That's all they amount to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just remember, the item will be next on the agenda, the second meeting in November.
Just trying to shut it off.
That's the only thing you touched. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Doesn't come off. Hi, good evening, Scott Miller. Scott Miller from the city of Ridgecrest, not the city, but I live here in Ridgecrest. I don't know enough information about this. I have 3 questions, and I know the city attorney doesn't like when I ask questions, but too bad. We have 9 weeks before this grant or whatever we're working on. Is that right? 9 weeks from today, or how long?
Until December 15th.
December 15th.
Yes.
Has the grant been written yet?
It's in the process. All the meetings are being adhered to, so the process is in motion.
I think you're on the other mic.
No, I said the process is in motion.
Okay, so the process is in motion. It's in December 15th. So, and when's the next city? So we'll have 4, my math may not be right. Is it 4 weeks from the next council meeting? We'll have more data?
There's still another meeting for the grant on the November 2nd.
Meeting for the grant on November, and that's a public meeting?
Public meeting, yeah. It will be noticed next week.
Okay.
Which, at the last quality of life meeting, the grant consultant called in and said we are well on schedule, even ahead of some other cities on the schedule to meet the December 15th timeline.
That was where my concern lied, and thank you for answering, because I didn't know the answer. My concern lied is we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for permission to start. So the process has started. However, we may not, depending on the next discussions, may not move forward depending on what we find out from the rest of the staff. Is that what I'm understanding? Did that make sense at all?
So the waiting to move this to the next meeting will not inhibit or slow the progress of the process in any way, shape, or form.
So if the numbers don't look right, we'll just stop the grant process? Because we have until December. I guess my question is, no matter what happens, are we still going to go for the grant, or are we going to pull it if for some reason the numbers don't look right?
Why would we do it without looking? We've got to discuss.
Well, that's my question. Is
I think what features are included may be changed based on the maintenance costs, right?
The facility features.
Yes. So obviously, if right now there may be 3 pools, and if maintenance cost for 3 pools is too high, then maybe one of those might be scaled back.
If I may suggest, and I appreciate it's been pulled, and I apologize for coming up and asking about it, I would suggest we have one before then.
The city attorney, guys,
wow, that's
this
interesting.
is not an agenda item currently. The agenda item was pulled. Remember that we're to respond briefly. This is the city attorney.
Oh.
Remember that we're to respond briefly to comments, but I'm afraid this is turning into a discussion on this item, which is inappropriate.
Okay, so it is appropriate. Then we have another meeting before then. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, is there anything else? Anybody else who would like to speak on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, the next item is council announcements. We're going to do, I have one announcement I'd like to read to you. You remember our discussion, I'm going to give this to you. I gave it to Rika. Our discussion of asking Governor Newsom to look at separating East Kern, West Kern, Ridgecrest, and his response to us was not only no, but heck no, because there's no way we're going to administer. It wasn't his official response. What it was the response saying, we're not even going to consider that, and that was through Kern County and Matt Constantine. And so the city of Apple Valley wrote a letter very similar to ours and so I talked to their mayor, Scott Nassif, today, asking him to let us know what kind of response that they get from the governor or his staff. And he is going to do that. They did not include the health department in their letter, and he thought that was a pretty sharp position for us to take, because working with the county together and not just trying to, and that was what we said, letters sent in conjunction with others are infinitely more effective. And so he's going to go with their own health department and see, because Apple Valley is kind of like we are in San Bernardino County. You've got a huge huge purple county with Apple Valley. Is their response was, we have virtually nothing here, and we're shut down and we can't do anything. And they're not red, they're purple. They're what we were a few weeks ago or a week ago. So we're going to continue to work with them and find out what their response is. But I just wanted to let you know on that. Is there any other council announcements? Okay, if you'll all join us at the podium, please.
Put that button in a different spot.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so it's my honor tonight to present the Employee Service Awards. So these service recognition awards are presented by the Ridgecrest City Council to employees who have reached milestones in increments of 5 or more years of employment during the second quarter, April to June 2020, and the third quarter, July to September 2020, with the City of Ridgecrest. So we have 3 of these awards tonight. So first, we'd like to recognize Lauren Culp for his 10 years of service. So Lauren, if you'd like to step up and get your service award. Thank you. And on behalf of the council, we thank you for your hard work and service for these 10 years.
Thank you very much.
So would you like to have a moment?
Maybe 10 years ago, I was a struggling engineer in Montana, and the economy kind of fell on its face. I was on my 3rd emergency unemployment round, and just about 3 months away from handing the bank the keys. And boy, I was sending out resumes like crazy. And there was 2 job announcements, one for the city of Ridgecrest and one for a little town in Wyoming. And by golly, you here in the city of Ridgecrest saved me. I really appreciate what you put me to work here, and really appreciate that, standing by me in some of my hard times. But, when I started here, Harvey Rose was the city manager, and Dennis Spear was the public works director. And at that time, Harvey had 3 things he told Dennis and I what he wanted us to get done. One of them was get Ridgecrest Boulevard built. The second one was try to help get Walmart in town. And the third one was to get a new wastewater treatment plant built. And so by the looks of what we're doing tonight, it looks like, good Lord willing, and my health stays good, I might be able to help you in that aspect and see it all get done for Harvey. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that, Lauren, because it's really nice to hear firsthand from an employee who appreciates his job and appears to be enjoying it. So thank you, sir. So next on the list is Daniel Leroy, in recognition of 10 years of service to Ridgecrest. I understand that Daniel cannot make it here in person tonight. So Daniel, if you're listening, we thank you from the council for your 10 years of service, and we'll have your award with the city clerk. Okay. And so in third in line here is recognition of service to Vicki Young for her recognition of 5 years of service to the city of Ridgecrest. I'd like to add that the first 2 were public works employees, and Vicki is a transit employee. So she's being awarded for her 5 years of service to the city of Ridgecrest. And again, Vicki has not been able to be here in person tonight. So, and again, to Vicki, if you're listening, thank you for your service. And that's it. So, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the base earthquake recovery update, and I understand we have two special guests. Would you come up and join us, please? Mr. Brad Harlow and Mr. Lori Scott.
Brad, you got the clicker up there?
Yeah.
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an update from the Navy on efforts to restore China Lake. My name is Brad Harlow, and I'm here with Captain Lori Scott. We are the senior military and civilian leaders of a new organization the Navy has established at China Lake to manage the execution of the earthquake recovery. More on this in a moment. Since the earthquakes in July 2019, the Navy has developed a plan, and we are on track toward executing per that plan. In fact, we've made great progress, as you'll hear this evening. Our community has relied on strong partnership between the city and the Navy for many decades. The earthquake recovery effort is no exception. And the Navy is grateful for the support from the leaders here in Ridgecrest, as well as at the state and federal levels. Another partnership that has been crucial is the one the local Navy entities at China Lake have formed with other parts of the Navy. As the lead of the recovery efforts for NOC-WD under the command of Rear Admiral Scott Dillon, I and the NOC-WD team, along with our China Lake teammates from NAS China Lake, and under the leadership of Commander Pete Benson, the Public Works Department, we all reached out to the larger Navy enterprise for help. The primary source of that help was and is the Navy Facilities Command, or NAVFAC, in San Diego. Within hours, personnel from NAVFAC arrived and provided immediate help to make the base safe and assess damage. And almost as quickly, the collective team began making plans. One of the key figures throughout the entire process has been NAVFAC's Captain Lori Scott, who is with me tonight. Captain Scott has been with us since day one, first as part of NAVFAC Southwest's organization in San Diego. But more recently, in recognition of the importance of the recovery effort, Captain Scott has been assigned as the officer in charge of construction, a brand new command established here at China Lake. Captain Scott and I have stood up a joint organization as we transition from planning to execution. In just a minute, Captain Scott will share all the latest information with respect to construction efforts. But first, a quick mention of some of the other recovery efforts. First, in order to bridge until all the new construction is completed, we've brought in a significant number of temporary facilities or repurposed existing facilities to accommodate functions displaced by the earthquake. So if you've seen truck after truck of pieces of modular buildings headed toward town, now you know why. And second, from the start, we've been busy repairing facilities that could cost-effectively be repaired. Initially, the repair efforts were focused on restoration of the basics like power and water, or removing safety hazards. More recently, the Navy has been awarding larger repair contracts for the more complex restoration projects. In some cases, the contracts have been managed locally by the Base Public Works Department. In other cases, repair contracts have been issued through NAVFAC San Diego. In most cases, there have been opportunities for local businesses or labor to participate. The estimated cost of these repairs in fiscal years 2020 and 2021 is approximately $450 million. By far, the largest repair effort is Michelson Laboratory. Those of you who are familiar with Mike Lab know it is one of the base's cornerstone facilities. The contract to repair Mike Lab has been issued in September and is currently in the design phase of the project to do a seismic upgrade to a facility that was built long before modern seismic practices existed. The design-build contractor will begin the actual deployment of its repair team in early 2020. Now I'll hand it over to Captain Scott.
Thank you, sir. Are you going to take questions after, or how do you all want to work it?
We will field them jointly as soon as Captain Scott is done, if that is okay.
All right. Thank you both. All right.
Thanks, Brad. And let me just also say good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. Great seeing you again, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad, for the update, and I'll transition now to focusing on the major construction effort. So this slide is an overview of the 18 major replacement construction projects in the earthquake recovery program and the area on base where they are located. The blue font represents the construction projects that were awarded in FY20. The 9 projects outlined in blue represent 50% of the MILCON program from a raw number perspective. From a budgetary perspective, those projects represent 60% of the MILCON program budget. The first MILCON project was awarded in April, and that was the main magazine that's located to your right, to your right upper quadrant. And we held the groundbreaking for that project last Thursday with representatives from the construction contractor, Naval Munition Command. The base CO was there, as well as your city manager, Ron Strand. Videos from that event are posted on the OICC Channel Lake Facebook page and the external NAVFAC OICC Channel Lake page. So if the residents of Ridgecrest are interested in seeing pictures from the recovery effort, they can go to our Facebook page. The remaining 7 projects in blue are going through their design phase, which typically takes 6 to 9 months before construction kicks off. It's important to note that the largest single contract action for the earthquake recovery program was awarded in September. This single construction action included the 6 airfield projects located in the upper left corner of this slide. The red font represents FY21 planned MILCON awards. This totals a program amount of $800 million. 6 out of 9 of these projects will support the Channel Lake Propulsion Lab area, which is the center of gravity for FY21, as these are all very unique, special purpose built RDT&E type facilities. The areas identified for temporary employee housing will be located in the vicinity of the back gate southeast of North Range. The next slide speaks to the timeline for this temporary housing to be operational. Next slide after this one, I mean. This slide shows the building blocks for execution. All the projects will be design-build contracts, meaning once the projects are actually awarded, they will go through a design period of about 6 to 9 months before full-scale construction actually begins. Once construction is completed, NOC-WD will come in and actually outfit their facilities with specialized equipment or anything that is unique to their mission set. So this is a conceptual timeline of the design, the build, and the outfitting effort for both FY20 and FY21. If you look down at the bottom, the line graph is an estimate of the number of construction workers that will be coming on site to support the recovery effort, with a peak load of 1,500 personnel projected for late FY22 or early FY23. It's important to note that this is just an estimate that we will validate as projects are awarded and schedules are confirmed. This slide is just a timeline of things that the broader Ridgecrest community may be interested in. I spoke to the first bullet in my first slide, but we'll reiterate it here. 9 out of 18 Milcon projects are awarded. That is 50% of the actual military construction projects, but 60% of the budget. All are in design phase except for the magazine project I referenced early, where we had the kickoff groundbreaking ceremony last Thursday. We also, we're planning to have another groundbreaking ceremony in the February timeframe for the community support facilities. So this will rebuild the gym and multi-purpose facility that will primarily be used as the chaplain. So the gym that was damaged and the chaplain that was damaged will be reconstructed through this effort, and the groundbreaking for that begins in February 2021, and we will invite the city to participate in that as well. Also in February, the temporary employee housing will come online, and that housing will allow those construction workers to have a place to house themselves. In April, the construction phase for multiple projects will kick off. So spring next year, there will be a significant increase in construction on base. As I said before, and I think Brad alluded to this as well, right now we're in design phase for all of the projects except for the magazines. You won't see a tremendous bump up until around the April timeframe. Here's a list. This slide is just a list of contractors who won major earthquake recovery projects. The first 4 contracts represent the 9 Milcon projects awarded in FY20. The last project is the major repair project that Brad talked about. Just note this. All of the contracts have a small business subcontracting goal. So they are actively reaching out to local and regional folks to solicit materials, supplies, and workers. They're actively doing that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to some of the contractors. Brad and I do partnering with each one on a bi-monthly basis, and many of them are trying to exceed their subcontracting goals. Okay. And last but not least, this is our brand new logo. So shortly thereafter, we'll be bringing swag to this meeting and offering some to you guys. So this is our brand new logo, Office in Charge of Construction. As I said, this is an integrated team between myself on the NAFAC side and Brad on the NOC-WD side, formulating the Officer in Charge of Construction office to lead the effort. Pending any questions, that's all we have.
Council, any questions? I do have one, and it's one that's coming from the public quite often to me, is that this is, those skeptical people that never believe anything. This isn't really going to happen, it's just all talk. Can you say formally to those people that the money is allocated, funded, and done, it's going to happen?
Absolutely.
And it is beginning and has begun and will continue through that time frame.
Yes, ma'am. So let me just say this, and I said this. We did a press release for the magazines, and I've said this several times, even at my establishment ceremony. Really, it's the elected officials in this city, in this region, in this state that really did a tremendous job in advocating for this program. So all of the Milcon dollars, which is the major stuff, all of that was actually allocated in FY20. So when we talk to folks, the question is, how fast can you move? So the contracting tools that we have are the fastest and most dynamic that we have in our arsenal. And so that's why I can say with confidence that this program is on solid footing.
So community, you better be ready because it's here. And you're thinking that you're going to do it tomorrow, don't wait till tomorrow. We need to support these people, offer the services they need, and take care of the people that are coming in to provide them the services they need, the businesses they need, And if you don't stand up and you're not counted now, don't complain about it later, please. So is there any other questions from anybody? Please come up and state it for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, we don't want you doing that. We'll get it. Thank you.
Tom Wicknick, I'd like to just ask, first of all, as a former contract manager and program manager on the base, I commend you on your timeline on your contracts and getting them ready and the statements of work done and everything and getting them out. Really impressed in your time frame that you've presented here to us. I know what work it is to get a contract like that out. I would just like to know, can you give us a little bit of overview, the temporary housing that you mentioned in your slide? Could you expand on that a little bit in the essence of, will that be on base, off base, and what will it look like?
That was my question. Okay.
I think I lost the remote.
Sorry, I was
No problem, no problem. Okay, so let me just go back to this slide. So if you look, that block in the lower left that says main side, right beside that block, there's this little area, thank you. That's where the temporary house is going to be located at. So that's right across the street, if you will, from the base fence line. So it's about a 600-acre plot on Navy property. Thanks, Brad. 600-acre plot, and it is federal property. So the contractor will come in, and they will put up a fence line around the perimeter, and they will be bringing in modular units for the personnel that will be actually housed there. They're not tents. They're actually modular units for those personnel. We have not awarded the contract yet. So once that's awarded, they will be required to provide certain submittals, and then at some point in the future, I can come and talk in more details specifically about some of the things that the contractor will outlay as far as the layout of the housing itself.
Will there be facilities for RVs?
No. There will not be facilities for RVs. These will be modular housing units. There will not be RV facilities now.
Do you want to come up so you can speak as?
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Just speak from there so people online can see it.
Sir, in the contract negotiation, is there any compensation being discussed to the city for the infrastructure costs that will be used by those individuals that are here on the temporary housing basis? They'll be using our streets, they'll be using our facilities, they'll be using all those other resources of the city. Is there any contract discussions on how to compensate the city for those resources being used temporarily?
Well, the contractors are reaching out to the city to negotiate with the city how they can partner with the city for food services, as well as any type of other services they may need as part of the establishing their temporary employee housing.
Yeah, because they're not, if they do not come on the city land, it's difficult for the city to assess a fee because they're not within the city, they're not on the city land. There may be some land that may be licensed to ECC, whoever gets the contract, that's still to be determined. We do have a small group that talks weekly. That group involves a local group of restaurants, the IWV-EDC, the Ridgecrest Area Realtors, and a few other, and the RACBB, so we can reach out to the contractors, one that may get this bid for the employee housing, as well as the contractors who have been awarded contracts, so we can at least provide them information about our community regarding accommodations, food, etc. But no, there is no methodology for us to be able to tax them, so to speak, if that's what you're asking.
Well, essentially, where the city does not receive compensation from the base other than through our personnel. And I was looking to say, if we have 1,500 people here, they are additionally utilizing those city resources. Is there compensation to support that?
I don't think there's a legal mechanism in which we can assess that, but
The contract could be discussed. The
right.
contract could be approached as part of
Right.
the negotiation.
Right.
Okay. Thank you both. We truly appreciate it. We can't wait. What? Oh, sorry.
Is your presentation available online?
Yes, so we will post it onto we have a external website, and we'll post it there, as well as the city. Feel free to post it on your site as well.
Okay. And I can email it to you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you both. We truly appreciate the cooperative effort you've shown us, the community, and we proudly work together. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, Captain Scott and Brad Hollow, I do appreciate your guys' willingness to come make this presentation tonight. It was very informative. I also do appreciate you guys being willing to meet with city staff and be open and assist us in developing plans for the impact of the rebuild of the base. And like I said, it's been very welcome to have that continual dialogue with you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion, or if no members of the council or audience wish to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately, and an opportunity for each member to address the public. Item number 3, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated October 7th. Number 4, resolution of the City Council to adopt job description for police records supervisor. And number 5, grant acceptance of our grant awarded to the Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division within the California Department of Parks and Recreation. Does any member of the council wish to have any item pulled? Does any member of the public wish to have any item pulled? Okay, so we'll entertain a motion to approve items number 3 and 5.
Motion approval of 3 and 5.
Second.
So do you have to call it, right?
Mayor Breeden.
Yes.
Mr. Blades?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Yes.
Aye. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, and then item number 4, resolution of the City of Ridgecrest City Council to adopt job description for police records supervisor. Chief, do you want to come up and is there questions, please, sir?
Good evening, Chief. Okay, so I guess it just makes me curious, do we not have a job under this description prior to tonight?
I believe there existed one many, many years ago, and those were since purged, so had to redo it.
Okay, so I guess it makes me curious, who's been taking care of that function all this time?
Usually it was assigned to a sergeant, patrol sergeant, or if we had one working admin, they would do it. And obviously they're not the experts in that field, so it just needs one with all of the updates and everything that keep coming down.
Okay, so this would be like another person added to the staff and do
No,
this,
it's just
or-
one of our current records clerks would just take that over.
Oh, okay, so.
No additional.
This is just kind of a detail
Yes.
kind of a thing, yeah.
The position was approved in the budget, and then when we went to verify that the job description, it didn't exist, so we had to regenerate it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, all right, that clears it up.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion from council?
I
Okay, a
move-
motion?
Motion approval?
Second.
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Ms. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. I'm going to say for the record for Mike, as you all know, Mike Mauer had surgery this morning and is calling in on the phone. And he is hoping to leave after item number 9. So I just wanted to let you know, if any of you wanted to say something to him before that, you may do so. Okay, the next item, a discussion to provide guidance to the city's representative on the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Mr. Heeman.
All right. So I'm just going to give kind of a brief update of the agenda and items that we discussed at the last board meeting, and then any questions that the council may have. So skipping down to item 7, was the meter compliance update. There was discussion on meter compliance, and particularly with small mutuals and costs incurred to those folks, and ways to assist them in being able to report and in a reasonable manner of paying. It was agreed by the board that we felt it was important to work with those folks so that they could find ways, if the cost to get around the meters or to use other sources. So it was moved back to staff to work that out. And so I think that was a good discussion and outcome of it. Item number 8 was board consideration and approval of resolution 07-20 establishing a reporting policy for all new groundwater extraction wells in the basin. So basically what this entailed was new wells that are being drilled, their reporting process, how they would report and register their wells, and that and meters being installed if they're de minimis user, registration of the well, and then nothing further at that point. And if they're non-de minimis users, then metering of all new wells, so that there's a data point, and like starting from that point on, we have complete knowledge and registration and of the wells. Item number 9, board consideration and discussion of an optimized use of the recycled water. That pertained to the wastewater treatment facility and the wastewater coming from the plant, and where that water would be best used and who would be best served from it. So that's currently in discussion. Don't really have anything further to report on that, other than there's discussion of the council approving the moving forward, working with the GA to be the controlling factor of the wastewater, the affluent water coming from the plant. And so, like I said, they're working on where that water would best be served, whether it would be with Searles Mineral or the Water District. And so, item number 10, board consideration and discussion of the following valuation and potential for transfer market in the transient pool. So, discussion was made on working with the ag and the parties involved in the transient pool, and as to whether they would be able to transfer that water if they sold their property, or within the ag community, if another ag person would be able to purchase that water from another ag source. And so, again, that was approved by the board to move back to staff, and is currently a work in progress. And then the rest was a vision plan, so and other mundane things. So I'll open it to any questions or comments from the staff or from the council.
I just had a quick one because I know that the city is going to be taking over the role, and last time we were in charge, it was quite intensive for you. And so, are they hiring a manager? Where are we at in that process so that we make sure our staff time is protected?
Yes, we have, it has been opened up and advertised for a general manager for the Groundwater Authority. We have identified 3 applicants that will be interviewed by the board next Thursday, and they'll be making a decision from there. The hope is to have a manager on staff before the end of the year, which will be extremely helpful to me.
Okay. And then as part of that, our legal counsel takes over, but those costs are reimbursed, correct?
That's what we're working on, yes. I will still remain as staff, as well as Don Zadiba from the Water District and Alan Christensen from the county. So we'll still be intact as staff for the board, but we will not be, hopefully, the general manager.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions from the call-in or from the room?
I'll ask it. While Mike's walking up, I'll ask a real quick one. It seemed like during discussion number 7, you guys were allowing, or it seemed that the board was going to give, sorry if that's closer, there we go, give your staff guidance to go off and work with people on variances for their wells. Is that correct? And I was just curious about well, you guys didn't delve much into what that variance would look like.
Well, a lot of the mutuals and small well operators are on a shoestring budget, and so it may entail reading meters in lieu of, or not reading meters, but reading power usage over, the meters, estimations of usage based on, what they have in comparison to other users, like users. So it's basically assisting them in trying to keep the costs down, but still be able to give the information that they need to the board.
Right, because it seemed like it was going to the costs were going to be exponential for testing and metering, right, for each of those wells.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a good thing for those folks. I mean, it's a working between the GA to try to help these folks.
Well, I think it's a good thing the GA is showing that it's malleable, right? That this isn't something, that you guys are willing to work with people, work with the community. Okay, that's good.
Okay, Mr. Neal?
Thanks, Mike. Sorry about that.
Yes, Mike Neal. Okay, a few things here. One, as it was just brought up, so I'll talk about that. The administration of the GA, they have, as was pointed out at the meeting, 0 budget for that, 0 income for that, yet they're going to hire a general manager. I failed to see how that makes much sense, but there's been a number of things the GA have done that I didn't think made much sense, especially lately. So you got that problem. You got the problem of any form, even a hint of transparency to items like this, which are financial, a cost to the public. The board doesn't fund this. Individual members don't fund this. Me and every other citizen in this basin fund this. The resistance for all these years to having any kind of finance committee, even when it's brought up and pushed, and Mick Gleason kind of begins to kind of waffle and sway a little bit about it, you hear what he thinks about it when he pops out with this little statement, so, but I don't want any oversight. So there you go. The GA board leader and possibly several members don't want any oversight of any kind, especially in their financial dealings, yet what's the amount of this last fee? $50 million over 5 years, added on top of the extraction fee, the hit to the growers in the valley, and the negative impacts and all this discontent that this whole thing has engendered. And we don't want any financial transparency. I think that needs to change, seriously change. And I think this council needs to have serious discussions and give some serious suggestions. I guess is all you can really say they are anymore to their GA rep. Maybe we can change that with the next council, that we get that in place. The other one that's I keep harping on, and there's no discussion after all these years, is that here we are taxing people with a board of unelected people, people who just appointed themselves into power. That also needs serious discussion and some serious direction to our representative on the board. The water district is pretty much on board with that. And interestingly enough, their lawyer doesn't tell them that they can't direct their representative, but our lawyer tells you guys you can't direct your representative. So there's a big disconnect there, and I think that bears a whole lot more discussion. All in all, I just have to say, now we got all these lawsuits. I'm surprised the city proper hasn't been named in one of them. They're part of the GA too. So far, it's been the water district and the GA board. So the lawsuits are going to keep rolling in, and the cost is going to keep going up. So there you go again, Finance Committee, for some form of transparency, to at least to the public, kind of could see things lined out as to where all this tax they're going to be paying is being paid out to.
Thank you, sir.
Tom Wicknick, question about the cooperation between the GA, pardon? Okay. Question about the cooperation and working together between the GA, the city, and the water district when it comes to conversations about the new wastewater treatment plant the city is planning on building. Okay, so that's how I'm framing my question. That keep hearing that there's a lot of interest in what might happen with our new sewer facility and how that water could be used at tertiary treatment, et cetera, et cetera. Because the city in this decision can help the water problem for the valley as far as with the sewer facility. So they're linked together. Is there an official group of people that are somehow working between the city, the water district, and the GA in what design to decide for the new sewer facility and what features to have in it? Is there a group of people that are discussing this on a regular basis? And if there is, where do they meet and who's in that group?
You want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that question. I think, the city's intention is to build a facility that will be treated its influent to a secondary level. And then we'll make that water available, obviously, to the Navy for their in-kind use, as well as up to approximately 2,000 acre-feet for recycled use within the community. We have reached out through our attorney, Keith Lemieux, who has spoken both with Cyril's, the Water District, and the Groundwater Authority to work with those individuals to establish a project or to establish some sort of plan for them to somehow take the water and be able to come up with a project and a program to be able to use it. So the city's position is we're looking at processing the water and providing it to a delivery point and offering it to one of those three entities or one entity working on behalf of two others to be able to take that water for its most beneficial use.
Okay, so to summarize what you said then basically the city is taking a position on their own at this point that we're going to have a facility that could wind up with 2,000 acre-feet of water that could be provided, and we'll probably have it out then for either the water district to come and ask for it, or the GA, or Cyril's Valley, or something like that. That's the idea.
Correct.
So there's no already planned as far as talks with these other agencies and what they would, if they're interested in it, or in what they would do with it.
Yeah, talks are in the way. As you know, the Water District made a presentation during their last meeting regarding recycled water. And that was based upon a conversation that I had some time ago with Don Zadiba, their general manager. So these discussions are taking place on a conceptual basis on how this will actually roll out.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions or discussions?
Hey,
Okay,
Doc.
thank you all.
Just
I
just
see
one
no
moment.
calls in, so we will go
He
to
does
the
have
next.
one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I kind of skipped around. I just
Go
took so
ahead.
many notes watching that. It was a long meeting, right? And so during that, it was generally mentioned, and it was mentioned quickly, is to do with outside funding for other water projects. Steve mentioned it at some point. Could you speak to that, Doc?
In regards
I'm not
to-
expecting you to have every single detail. I just understand that what are those other outside funding sources? Like this was on item number 9. And at some point, Steve mentioned that there was outside funding for other water projects. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, so please don't feel like
Yeah, I don't
that's
know if
what's
I have
happening.
an answer for the outside, where those outside, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, yeah, sorry, Keith.
Is this in reference, hi guys, is this in reference to the recycled water project?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a DCIP.
The outside funding, there's Prop 1 funding, there's other pots of grant money on the state level. Stetson has indicated that the project, just speaking broadly, sounds like a very good candidate to receive some of this money. And then I think there's been some effort made on a federal level to by the GA's consultants to try to get a package of money available on that level too.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Keith. Sorry to put you on the spot, Doc.
No.
So could that potentially then reduce our costs as a city? And then how does that work for how the wastewater fees were calculated?
One of the areas that we're going to begin to focus on, one of many, would be to begin working with Capital Corps. Capital Corps obviously has a relationship with the Water District and the Groundwater Authority. There is some grant funding out there for recycled water projects. I do believe that maybe here in the next month we might be coming back asking the council to support a letter to the government on the next NDAA in support of some funding that might be available for water resiliency for communities through the DCIP grant program. That could either benefit the city one of two ways, either directly to us for our project or through the Groundwater Authority or through the other entities or group of entities that may request that grant funding for the recycled water project. And yes, that would help both the city and the Groundwater Authority.
Does that answer your question?
It does, and that's
Okay.
kind of what I was alluding to, is how we were going to assist and
I
how
thought
it was
you were
going to benefit
referring
us all.
to, and I'll bring this other topic up since I thought you were referring to the other drilling in another area outside of on the southwest end of the basin. But yes, because I brought a sheet up to Ron's attention that showed some other communities across the state and across the nation that have utilized this grant process and received money for, let's just say, base or cities related, base related cities, and for the infrastructure, and some of them entailed wastewater treatment facilities amongst water infrastructure programs, and so I saw, well, this looks like a reasonable thing for us to look at too, if we could get in on that, and so, but that's what the outside funding was about. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is Councilman Stevens had asked in the previous meeting on exploration well progress in the El Paso range, and so that is in progress, and so they're working on that to further their drilling and find out is there, do the testing, get information and data from it, whether or not it what it projects, we don't know. I don't want to
Do we have a timeline of
I
when they
believe
will
it's
get
November was a tentative time frame that they're looking at
coming back with presentation?
Yeah, so I'll keep everybody abreast of that as more information comes up.
Oh, they're drilling it in November,
Yeah.
and then they'll present the data.
Yeah, because they'll put their metering and their testing equipment on it and then determine what. So.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, the next item then will be a resolution of the City Council, I'm sorry, that's the item number 7, which we pulled. Number 8, a resolution to approve a 50-year land easement between the City of Ridgecrest and the United States Government Navy for approximately 360 acres on Naval Air Weapons Station Channel Lake for the city to build and operate a new wastewater treatment facility. Mr. Strand.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the
Just one
City
moment.
Council.
Sorry, Ron, sorry to interrupt you. So I have been advised by NOC WD counsel that I should excuse myself from this discussion, so I'll be right outside.
Okay.
And I'll put my disclaimer in that my husband is employed by the Navy, but through their analysis, spouses are exempt, so I'm okay to stay. So.
Okay, and remember we have Mr. Mauer here now too, so there is 3.
Sorry about that, Kyle. I forgot about that.
Okay.
All right, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, what I have before you tonight is a resolution approving a 50-year easement with the United States government for approximately 360-acre land lease with on board China Lake Naval Weapons Center for the existing plant as well as to build a new facility. I do have our attorney, Dave Gondek, on the line tonight to assist if needed. I do have Commander Pete Benson from the installation here to answer questions if necessary, as well as Bard Lauer, our Public Works Director. So just a little background. Back in the 50s, a small sanitation district was established for a small civilian workforce or civilian committee that was outside the gate at the time, outside the China Lake Naval Weapons Center. That sanitation district served both outside the gate as well as eventually the city of Ridgecrest after it incorporated in 1963. In the early mid-70s, several of the base employees began to move off the base and within the city. And within a few years, the wastewater facility for the Ridgecrest Sanitation District began to lose capacity. In other words, there were too many people moving in town to be handled by the facility. That facility was located on San Bernardino Boulevard, where the current animal control building is at. So in 1972, Lahontan required both the city and the Navy. The Navy at the time was having other issues with their plant, which needed upgraded. And they made the decision, along with the EPA, to only have one wastewater treatment facility within the valley, and that would be on board China Lake at that current location where the Navy had the facility. That facility was the best facility at the time. It was the ability to expand it was there, and it also was at a very low point in the valley, which meant was all of the sewage that went to the facility was gravity fed. There was no lift stations, no pump stations, so it all just flowed to the facility. So in 1974, the city of Ridgecrest began operating the plant. In 76, we accepted title of the facility and entered into a 50-year easement agreement with the Navy at that point in time. And with that agreement also came a service agreement. So over the years, the plant, at one point in time, there was a risk that the community was going to outgrow the plant. But the most important part is that the facility was built in 1943. It was upgraded in 76, but it was antiquated. I think I've been told that it still has metal in it from some battleship from the Navy, that it was built with metal and that it's still there. So in 2008, the city began to hire consultants to do research on a new plant. It started with the wastewater treatment plant project report by Carrillo in 2008. And then in 2015 and 16, we did 3 other reports, the 30% design project, the Provost and Pritchard. And then we did another state water revolving fund project report by Provost and Pritchard in 2016. And then a environmental impact report also in 2016. And at that time, the city was looking at 2 possible locations for the new plant. Site 1 was the Navy site, and Site 2 was a city site. Both sites had their pluses and minuses. However, the Navy site would be the most cost-effective location for a new facility because it would still be gravity-fed. We'd still have the Navy as a customer. So the only obstacle was was trying to work through the process of establishing a new easement agreement. It took a couple of years, but we were able to work through all of the details. Part of the issues were just two government entities trying to negotiate a contract within our both confines. And so we were finally able to work our way through it. We have negotiated a new agreement. I'll just go over just a couple of the highlights of the agreement. One, it's a 50-year, which is the maximum number of years allowed under law. And the importance to that to the city was that enables us to be able to secure a loan to build the plant. We also agreed to provide the Navy 325 acre-feet of recycled water per year in kind for the use of the 360-acre easement for the wastewater treatment facility. We also agreed to provide them 200 acre-feet of recycled water per year to mitigate and conduct preservation measures for the protected Mojave tuichub, which is a federally listed endangered species. There are several reports that have been done over the years that that believes or leads to believe that the water from the wastewater facility is providing water to the Larkspur Leap, which is the water source for the Tuichub. So the Navy, with us providing them 200 acre-feet of water, the Navy has then assumed all of the responsibilities for the mitigation of the chub. So whatever it takes to address that issue while we build the new plant, they have assumed that liability.
Can I insert a quick question here?
Yes. By all means.
And if it's ever established that that is not needed, what happens to that 200 acre feet?
That water can come back to the city or it can be used for other mission critical needs for the Navy. But they did agree that they would not use it for irrigation purposes, not without our permission, but those irrigation purposes could only be if they were replacing well water use. So in other words, it would be replacing water from the basin for recycled water.
Great, thank you.
Are you taking questions?
Yes,
Stuart, or do you
by
wanna
all
wait?
means, any questions, if there's something, just ask.
Okay, so let's just keep the questions for council right now, and then we'll
Right.
open it up to the public afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, you guys can interrupt whenever you want. I'll
Okay.
answer whatever you have. The current easement agreement allows the Navy access to 750 acre-feet of recycled water per year. The new agreement reduces it down to 525 acre-feet a year. The primary use for what the Navy uses recycled water for is the golf course. I do believe that they've reduced the golf course from an 18-hole course to a 9-hole course. So after all this will leave us approximately 200 acre-feet of recycled water for a recycled water project. I've been asked, why the Navy land instead of the city land? One, you have the scale of economy. If we built it in the city without the Navy, you're probably looking at maybe a 10% reduction in the capital construction cost, but you're also losing the Navy as a customer, and they provide anywhere between $600,000 and $700,000 a year revenue to the facility. You wouldn't see a reduction in personnel because it takes X number of personnel to run the plant. You might see a little bit of a reduction in electricity use, but keeping the Navy as a customer is good for all of our ratepayers. Also, like I mentioned earlier, the plant is all downhill. If we went to the city site, we would have to have up to 4 lift stations, which would require us to obtain new easements. Then you would have the maintenance and the electrical costs to maintain those lift stations. We would have had to probably, without a customer for recycled water, may have had to acquire additional land out at the city site, and out at the Navy site, we don't have to worry about smell or any residents within the city being offended by the smell, even though we could have mitigated that through other construction means and other design, but there still would have been occasionally the smell, or at least the perception of having a wastewater facility, close to your residence. So I do believe that this site is the best location. We have a negotiating agreement. that provides the framework for us to build a facility. If we choose not to, we don't have to build a new facility. It'll just be another 50-year easement. We'll go 50 years. We'll provide them recycled water for their, for their use. But it does allow us to build a facility, and we are going to build a facility. We do have a path ahead of us once these are approved for us to begin that process of working in that direction. That's one of the things that was asked earlier about what do we do with the recycled water. That is why the city has reached out to the Groundwater Authority, Searles, and the Indian Wells Valley Water to start working on finding a customer for our water, because we know that for the basin, for the community, we have to find a beneficial use for that water because it reduces the amount of water that we're going to need for import. It balances our basin out. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
I think before it had been said that we would have still needed an easement even if we went on. Sorry, Mr. Matthews. Before I thought it was said that we also would have still needed an easement with the Navy even if we had put it on city land from Provost and Pritchard.
Yeah, based on what staff had directed Provost and Pritchard and I believe Carrillo, no, I take that back, Provost and Pritchard beginning in 14, was the thought the difference between the city site and the Navy site both included the use of the percolation and the evaporative ponds on the installation. It was never considered that we would not have some sort of footprint on the installation. It was just a matter of where the physical location of the plant. In fact, they had discussed having two separate plants, a plant for the base and a plant for out in town. That's just way too expensive. You have to man those facilities. So as we went through this, it just made sense, and it made dollar sense, and it made sense to our ratepayers to keep it where it's at. I mean, this easement will add about 7.4 acres to the easement, and this would be a plot of land to the west of the current facility. That's where we would build the new facility.
I have a couple of questions. They're kind of, kind of off the wall. But how does this deal with our treatment issues and Lahontan's concern about the treatment? Can you talk about that? And then I want to talk about the termination agreement.
Obviously, a new plant will allow us to process the influent much better. Right now, we process this to a primary state. We would go to at least a secondary state, which is cleaning the water quite a bit better. We would, as we've gone through this, we've tested all of the influent, both from the city and the Navy. We have a fairly good idea what's coming in from both locations. So we know that as this plant's built, we have to address those issues. We know that the Navy already has a plan on their end to address some of the issues coming from their side.
That's what I would like you to talk about, if you can, briefly.
Yeah, I mean, the Navy's agreed to pre-treat. We do have some constituents that are coming in that need to be addressed. So one of the steps after this is we're going to hire a consulting firm to help us establish our pre-treatment program so we can let the Navy know what that is, what they need to comply with. Then it's an interactive process. But at the end of the day, we just want to be able to comply with both, the state regional water board as well as the EPA. And I do believe that we can accomplish that.
Okay. The second question I had was on the termination. And the wording on page 15 of 20. I'm sorry. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. On page 15 of 20, it talks about the termination for breach, abandonment, or non-use. It appears to me that we are granting to the Navy the ability to terminate for any of those agreements, us. And do we have any termination clauses for us to terminate the Navy? It's all in the termination part.
Right. Well, most of those agreements are is if the city abandons the site. Let's say we decide to build the facility in town and abandon the facility on base. That would be grounds for the Navy to terminate with us. We do have a termination clause in here on our end. It's primarily before the plant is built.
That's what
And
I.
it's more of just
about.
it was just more of just a guarantee that the Navy would pre-treat, that there would be an effort to mitigate the chub. I do believe that that's going to occur, but we did put a clause in here just in case.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure we understand, the pretreatment and the Tui chub.
Correct.
Because those are so important to us, because we know what Lahontan had threatened to do in the past if the pretreatment wasn't taken care of and addressed. And now we know that we have the path for that pretreatment.
We were in contact with Lahontan during this process, and we discussed with them, some of the issues that they had with our current facility, and we understand what they are, and we're moving forward to address them. And the new plant, obviously, you're talking a plant that was last updated, I believe, in 1976. So, I mean, it's old technology. So we're hoping through hiring a consultant that'll help us guide us through what we're going to need in a new plant. I mean, obviously, we have to understand what our constituents are that are coming in, what are some of our issues that we have, and how do we build a plant to process the effluent so the effluent that we get is within all of the California, Lahontan's standards, and as well as EPA. So I do believe we're there. The Navy has provided us with their timeline and their plan for their pretreatment process and how they're going to accomplish that during this time frame. So I do believe we're all on track.
I know I've been involved in a little bit of the discussion from San Diego and Washington, and it has been an amazing process because, frankly, when Mike and I first were on this committee back with Ron Strand, not Spear, Dennis Spear, sorry. We felt like that y'all didn't care about us. This was just a process you had to go through, and as long as you could hold this off, it was to your benefit in the long run. And I am amazed in the past 3 years, the efforts that you've gone to. I wish it had been faster. I wish it had been more constantly when the people you were talking to are then transferred somewhere else. It makes it very difficult, but you guys all went above and beyond and made it possible. And I am very proud of the agreement that our staff and our employees of the people we've contracted with have made it happen. And in talking to Mr. Bulaki, it was the intent was there that we can do it. We can do it together because it is better working together. It is not so costly to try to do two, because if we'd done it on our own, and then we still had to take care of you, and it just seemed there was no way that to make it efficient and to be able to make it cost effective for our people. And that's what we wanted to be able to do. And I thank our staff for making that happen over many, 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 many hours.
There was efforts on both sides, from the city side and the Navy side, and it took both of us to sit down and knuckle down and work through the problems, and we did.
Local Navy was above and beyond. They went over backwards. Sometimes it was trying to convince the other navies, San Diego and Washington, that they had other efforts to do to make this happen. And I thank Congressman McCarthy and Senator Feinstein and their staffs for saying, we're going to make this happen. And they helped us. We worked together. We worked better together than like this. And so I'm very proud of how much we've gotten done. Is there any other council members who'd like to make comments?
I had a quick question still. What's our timeline look like for from here for having a new facility? Like Lauren mentioned, that was one of Harvey Rose's goals for him. So I'm just curious where we're at.
Well, we're going to be extremely busy for the next at least 3 years. There is a list of where we're heading next that I'll talk about after we talk about the service contract. But yes, once this agreement's in place, we have to put the Navy on notice of what our intent is going to be. And I could briefly, it's a new facility, and we're going to use as much recycled water as possible from there. And that there will obviously trigger some consultations between the Navy and Fish and Wildlife regarding the chub. And so the Navy has 2 years to be able to address those issues with them and come up with what or if there has to be any sort of mitigation measures to address the Tui chub. And in that 2 year period of time, we're going to be working on the design of the plant, and hopefully be working with the Groundwater Authority or other partners to be able to work on a recycled water project at the same time. So I'd say the next 2 years is going to be design and working through the agreements. And it'd be nice to be able to build both the new wastewater facility at the same time we're building the new recycled water project. It'd be nice to have that somewhat contemporaneous. It may or may not be. You know, if we come in before that project, we still have a way of addressing the effluent. We'll have the percolation ponds. We'll have, the evaporative ponds. So we'll still be okay with how we're addressing the byproduct. But we do know that, we all need to be on track and focused on getting the plant built and then finding a way of taking that recycled water and put it to a beneficial use as soon as we can. So that's where we're heading.
Okay. And then back 4 years ago when we were talking about this, there was lots of talk about there's a list of getting on for financing because there's lower rates. Like, how do we look for that as a possibility?
We do have a couple of consultants that are lined up that we're going to hire that are going to help us with that endeavor. We have filed, I believe in 2016, our application for a low interest loan through the state. Obviously, we hadn't gotten an agreement yet, so that didn't trigger anything. So we do have a consulting firm that's lined up to help us with that. We do have, I think, 4 or 5 groups that we are going to be engaging with here very shortly to start moving this project forward. And the first thing is just putting the Navy on notice. This is what our project is, so we can trigger that contact with Fish and Wildlife. We need to figure out what we need to do on our end with our environmental document. We had the EIR that was completed. We're more likely, do we need to redo it, or can we do a supplement? That needs to be determined. So there's a lot of stuff that once these agreements are in place, it triggers a lot of activity moving forward.
And everything, and just to kind of hear it said, everything in this agreement, because there used to be concerns about making sure there were certain terms in the contract that would eliminate us from the state funding, but we made sure we're covered on all of those different ways.
Correct. We early on, I believe in November, December of 2017, we had hired a financial firm to review the easement and advise us what we needed to do to make sure that the plant was fundable, that we could take a loan. So we made sure that, through our attorney, Dave Gondek, and through the Navy, we made sure that language that was in the easement agreement was as such that we could, take a loan. So yes, that was covered early on.
And somewhere in the mix of all that, you'll be getting back to us and on Capital Corps and maybe the possibilities of putting in for grant through the NDAA or the DCIP or whatever other programs are in part of that.
Yeah, I spoke with Jeff Simonetti last Friday, and I do believe that they're bringing in front of the Groundwater Authority a support letter for the NDAA for the DCIP grant. I do believe my intent is to bring that same support letter to you guys for approval, because what they're asking is in the next DOD budget to be able to change some language to refocus this grant on recycled water projects for resiliency for communities or adjacent to military installations. Whether we as a city get that grant or whether or not the Groundwater Authority gets that grant, it benefits the city either way.
And decreasing that loan amount.
Right, because if there's going to be an X capital dollar amount for, let's say, a recycled water project, whether it's deep well injection, whether or not it's just spreading and absorbing into the ground, there's a cost to getting that water out to that location. And so if we can get or if the water district, whoever can get that grant with our support, that obviously reduces that cost to the Groundwater Authority, reduce the cost to, let's say the water district and what they have to pay and capital costs to get that project going, which at the end of the day, saves either the water district money, saves us money, or both. So that's where we're heading. I mean, obviously there's, we're planning ahead. I don't have all the specific details, but I think we've got a fairly good roadmap on what we want to do. But we'd also like to use Capital Accord to be able to advocate for us in other grants. Maybe specifically for our facility itself to help fund a partial cost of it. So I think it's worth that little extra money that we're going to spend on that to basically maybe get some additional funding to help it. Because at the end of the day, the more we can put down on it, the less we have to pay in debt service, which is less their customers have to pay.
And then if we do end up getting a grant, for instance, would we do a new rate study to see if we need to change what we're charging?
There will be a rate study probably about a year after the plant is built, because there will be a period of time where both plants will have to run side by side before the new plant will run on its own, and then we'll get a good idea what our costs are. But the sooner, during this time we've been able to accumulate money through either the new fee structure that we had, as well as for the sewer connection fees and impact fees. So we've collected money that we use as a down payment for the new facility. Now, obviously, if we can, the less money we borrow, the less we have to pay. The sooner we pay off, the less interest we have to pay. So there is an argument to, hey, if we can pay this thing off in 10 years, then pay it off in 10 years. Because our current rate structure, if you compare it with other cities, is about middle of the road or a little below what most communities pay for their wastewater fees.
Okay, is there any other questions from council? Okay, I'll open it up to the public.
Yes, this is Dave Matthews. Just a little, I got a question here, but before that, I wanted to just kind of throw out some additional history. I moved into my house in December of 1968, and it's just north of, it was the part of the original Dieter tract north of Los Flores School. And the city sewer plant was still in operation at that time. I believe it was in operation, but I know that my neighbor to the west brought in some of the sludge from that location, and that's responsible for his front yard over there now. And what a lot of people don't realize is that tomato seeds seem to survive anything, and the whole front yard started sprouting up with tomato plants. My question concerns, I've heard some discussion about, Mr. Strand referred to it as the Mojave chewy chub, excuse me. And some people may not know exactly what that is. It's a little fish, and I believe it originally was living in Death Valley somewhere, and it was being put on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Endangered Species list, and in order to help it survive, they decided to transplant it over here to the base where it was pretty much enclosed and could be under a controlled substance or a controlled environment. Controlled substance, God. Anyway, my question is, I have not seen any reports on that lately, whether or not that fish is surviving, whether it's still on, I assume it's still on the endangered species list, but I would like to see an update report because some of the water that the Navy wants goes to help that survive. And if they don't need it anymore, if it's going to come off or it's not going to be there anymore, becomes extinct, then we can keep that water in the system here somewhere else. So that's my question for this.
I thought, Mr. Matthewsby, after I left office, I was going to go out there and net them all, and I have a 2-week chub fry. So I'm being facetious, everyone. But I'm ready to do that. So go ahead, Ron, answer the question, please.
Now I can't really speak officially for the Navy, but I do know that the 2E chub still exists. It's surviving, and I know that there are, they would like to maybe move it to another location in the future, but that's up to the Navy and Fish and Wildlife. Our part in this is because we're going to be moving a significant amount of water off of the base that's no longer going to be available to the Larkspur Seep, there has to be an environmental review of that activity to see what that's going to do to the chub. If it turns out that us taking 2,000 acre feet of water out of the percolation and evaporative ponds and move it off the installation to a recycled water project, what's the impact going to be on that endangered species? And that's what the Navy has to do, the review or the consultation with Fish and Wildlife to make that determination. Then it'd be up to the Navy to mitigate whatever needs to be done so we can move the water off and the chub can still survive. Okay. If that makes sense.
She's a good lady. Thank you, Rika.
I'm Stan Rotora. I'm a 48-year resident of this valley. I am supposed to tell you that I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Water District, but I am not speaking for the Water District tonight. So that's over. I have two primary concerns. First is I believe that the rent that the Navy wants for the land is much too high. The water the Navy wants is needed by the valley for health and welfare. That should be our highest priority. At this point in time, we don't know where we're going to get our water, and we also don't know what it's going to cost. I believe it is premature today to be making a commitment to the Navy for 525 acre feet of water that we don't know how we're going to replace. My second concern is based upon the data I have, the Navy, that is city data, the Navy is not paying a proportionate share of the sewage treatment cost. They generate 28% of the sewage, and they should be paying 28% of the revenue. Let me talk first about the revenue. If you look at the FY19 CAFR, the water wastewater facility funding is about $5.2 million. The way you get that is you take the total amount of income from service charges, which is $6 million, you subtract the $800K that's been dedicated to upgrading, maintaining, and operating the sewer lines. So $6 million minus $800,000 is $5.2 million. 28% of $5.2 million is $1,460,000. The Navy wants to pay $940,000. Now that is short $520,000. The Navy should be paying $520,000 more, and the city residents should pay $520,000 less. The reason you have, if you don't decrease what the citizens pay the public, then obviously all you do is raise the amount of money that comes in, which we really don't need. If the Navy only pays $940,000, the Navy is basically paying 18% of all the revenue. And the city residents are paying 82%. And that's not the ratio that we should be looking at. As far as I'm concerned, and what I suggest, is that neither the Navy or the city rates be updated or fixed for a 10-year period before a formal Prop 218 rate study is performed. We know that the first one was flawed. It had to go back and be corrected, and it was sort of a can of worms, quite frankly, when that was done. Second issue was the easement rent. The Navy wants to be paid for 360 acres of easement. Now, if you look at the real data that's in the data package, 339 acres of that is for evaporation ponds. We don't need 339 acres of evaporation ponds. That's one of the reasons why we're recycling. Evaporation ponds are an enemy of recycled water facility. What we need is a reasonably small emergency storage pond. It doesn't have to evaporate. It doesn't have to do anything else. And that storage pond could be located on the city site. It would be very straightforward using the existing 20-inch force main to transfer in case of an emergency over to the city site. The amount of acreage needed for the easement could be reduced by a factor of 5 or 6 or 7. We don't need 360 acres of easement. Now, the Navy wants 525 acre-feet of water for the 360 acres of easement. Now, replacing that recycled water, I just have a couple minutes left.
Please go ahead, sir.
Replacing that recycled water could cost as much as $1,000 an acre. All right? So what we're talking about is for $1,000 for an acre foot, each acre of easement is costing us $1,460 an acre. Now, that's about what that land is worth. It's desert land, and it doesn't have a lot of value. So therefore, basically, we are paying for that land every year. And I would like to point out that the Provost and Pritchard recommendation that the city site, that the Navy site was preferable over the city site as the most cost effective, that evaluation assumed that there would be no rent paid. And so if you look at paying rent in the order of $500,000 a year, that could affect what they were going to say in terms of where they advocated the plant to be. So in any event, in conclusion, we don't need to rush into signing a contract right now. The existing contract does not expire until 2020. That's 6 years from now, and we will have learned a lot of information, hopefully over the next 2 or 3 years. The people deserve transparency, and we haven't gotten that. We haven't seen the cost studies. We haven't seen the design studies. All we've seen is a lot of backroom discussions, and we obviously haven't actually seen them. And we come out, and now all of a sudden we've got an answer. So I would also like to suggest that maybe the people should have the right to vote on whether or not they want to continue to keep the plant on the Navy property. And I'd be willing to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can you answer his discussion on the 28% and the price that they're paying? I was going to ask about that under the next item,
on the next
but
item.
If we can just go ahead and answer it now, that'd be great.
Yeah, when they did, you have to understand that the Navy is only paying to have its influent processed, which means what we charge the Navy is what it costs us to do that, minus all of our labor, maintenance, and capital costs outside the gate. In other words, the Navy does not pay to maintain our sewer system. And as you know, through that rate study, there was a significant amount of money that was established in that fee for us to address and update our current sewer system, which we have been doing. We did I believe 2 phases so far, and we're getting ready to do a second or third phase of our sewer line rehabilitation project. So a lot of that money that is coming in that's shown on that revenue side is to address that. You have to also understand some of that money on that revenue side is also interest, use of money that's coming in, and we also take in a significant amount of money here lately on impact fees and sewer connection fees, which is also exhibited or in that number amount. So we will be doing another rate study once the plant's built.
Well,
we have
actually, the pro forma that was done.
With all due respect, Mr. Vittori, I'm just answering your questions. It's not a debate back and forth with you and I.
That's fine.
Okay.
What I'm saying is
I'm trying
the
to
rate
answer.
study was flawed. We all know it was. We had to go back and make a correction. 800K is what was in the pro forma for the sewer lines, 800K. The correction that came out did not deal with the capital cost, and that is why it was flawed. All you have to do is look at your own audits from year to year to year, and you can look at and see what percentage the Navy is paying. And based upon the numbers that are in this document, it is 18%. The numbers don't lie.
Thank you, sir.
I can finish answering a few of the questions he had. Yeah, the rate study. Yeah, we'll be doing a new rate study after the new facility is built. Obviously, we have to take into a lot of consideration of what will be our current future operation and maintenance cost, capital sinking fund, what our debt service will be on a loan that we may take to build the facility. So yes, we will have to do that. The Navy, not getting ahead of myself here, but the Navy has agreed to be a regular rate-paying customer and abide by our California Constitution in regards to Proposition 218. So I understand where Stan's coming from his belief. I think what he's seeing is a little more complicated than what he's trying to make it. We do believe that when we get squared away, we will stabilize the rates. So either more likely it may go down because there will be a charge for our recycled water to whoever the customer is that's going to take it. So that will come back to benefit our ratepayers.
And efficiency.
Right. And then as for the 325 acre feet, that was a negotiated amount. That is for the benefit of the Navy, for them to keep the golf course open. If the Navy wishes to close the golf course for the community, they're more than welcome to, and I would assume we'd get that water back. That is their decision. I don't know if the city wanted to be the entity that forced the closure of the golf course, so that's up to the Navy to decide what they want to do with that water. As for the 200 acre feet for the 2H hub, yes, we have to participate in that process. The water that comes through our plant ends up in percolation and evaporative ponds, and there are several studies out there that show that there may be a strong correlation between that and the water that the chubs swim in. And I do believe that providing 200 acre feet, that is our contribution, and the Navy has absorbed the rest of the burden for that. I don't think we could walk away clear from that. I do think, Mr. Ratora, that if we would have built the plant out in town, we may be providing more than the 525 acre feet of recycled water to mitigate the chub, because we would have been responsible, possibly. So I think I've answered all of his questions.
Can I have a quick question. If we do a rate study before this 10-year is up, does that mean that they will change their rate to meet the new rate study?
Yes, I mean, yeah, we'll be doing a rate study during this this service contract, absolutely. But it doesn't seem logical to do it at this point in time now, but we will do it once the new facility is online.
Okay.
And we'll do it for all of our customers, including the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in that discussion.
Yeah. And the Navy has agreed to abide by that process, and we have a process in which we will notify them, because like any other resident that gets notified of a 218 hearing gets a letter in the mail. We have a provision in the service contract where we'll give the Navy advance notice, and they can follow along in the process, and if they have an issue with how we've done the rate study, that they can address it.
Okay, Mr. Kelso.
Raymond Kelso, 2362 Lumille Street here in Ridgecrest. This is an expensive project here, and I have yet to see a number, a back of the envelope number, and what's this going to cost, and then what's it going to cost the individual ratepayer. There is a lot more discussion that needs to be made here. There needs to be much more copious amounts of discourse with the public. The public's going to end up paying for this. What are we going to pay for? What are we getting? What is fair and equitable? And is everybody paying their fair share? We're talking about water here. We're talking about our most precious resource, and everybody drinks water every day. And that needs to be taken into consideration. You also need to take into consideration our grandkids. What about them? Now, I don't know how much money you're talking about here, and I don't know how long that's going to be, it's going to take to be paid. Let's talk about that. Let's have some discourse here and include the public. Thank you.
Mr. Kelso, the public will be included. At this point in time, we are just trying to extend a easement that adds 7 acres of land so we can begin the process of designing a plant which will have public input to it.
Understand.
And we don't, and in all honesty, we do not have to build a new plant.
Understand.
Correct.
And I think that consideration needs to be part of the plan here, as well as any good plan should be, is to take a look at all your options and what's it cost. What's the cost benefit analysis of any of this? And I look around here, and
Mr. Kelso, I do believe that I don't know. I believe you commented on the EIR in 2016.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you're aware of what we are trying to do, because that was public noticed. You did provide a letter. I read your letter. So you are aware of the project, and I think you are aware of the potential costs. Now, what we're doing right now, this was just a site selection for us to move forward. So the EIR has been done. We know we have to do a supplemental EIR because the EIR did not consider the 2E hub previously. All this is just us extending our easement agreement with the Navy so we can move forward with that EIR that was publicly noticed. We took input, and it had a whole lot of public hearings in regards to it. So no, with all due respect, sir, this is not something that's been done in the dark. It may just be 4 years, a little bit later down the road, but this is just an extension of work that was started back in 2008.
Well, let's make sure it's not kept in the dark.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Council, Mike Neal. I want to preface anything I'm about to say with the statement that this whole process has been kept from public purview the whole time. We've seen it for about the last 4 or 5 days since it went out to the public. We have on this particular one, it's probably 300 pages of contract, a lot to look at if you want to go through the details, a lot to consider if you want to consider just the meat of the issue. We asked to see that. We were not allowed to see that. I know this one has been done for some time. We're told it was done. Well, we can't show it to you. We got to do the operations contract. My point is, having one council meeting with all this material and the extensive subject 50-year land lease agreement is going to, encase everybody's life and restrict them to what this contract will be for 50 years to come. Needs to have more public discussion, just like Mr. Kelso was advocating, I believe. We need to have more time. Talk about this, think about the issues, think about the equity to the citizens of Ridgecrest. Okay, I'm just going to talk about the land lease because you got another one coming up about the operations. All right, this basically is going to, pay for the lease of this land by providing over 525 acre feet of water a year to the Navy. Now, it's already been mentioned, the cost of the water, and you can make your estimates, and I guarantee you $1,000 an acre foot is the least that water is going to be worth. So you have to ask, is it fair to the citizens of Ridgecrest to put this facility on Navy land and pay $525,000 worth of water to them for that privilege? Or would it be better to put it on city land? Just right off the top, just throw this whole scenario out to the normal person. You would think the normal person would say, well, let's see, at the Ridgecrest plant, we're going to take in Ridgecrest water, and the Navy wants to give us some of their water to treat, and then they want some water back. So why don't we just say, here's the plant, give us your water, we'll charge you the standard rate that everybody else pays to treat your sewer water, and then if you want 525 acre feet, here's how much we'll sell it to you for. That's not what we're doing. We're saying with a lot of assumptions that, well, it's cheaper to put it on Navy land, and so we want to basically give $525,000 worth of water every year for 50 years to do that. Well, paying a little bit more for a plant on city land seems to be a way cheaper option. But of course, we're not given those figures. We're just having to operate on the ones of us who have paid attention, what we think those numbers are, and what that might be. So back to my first point. We need some more discussion. We need a town hall to where we can actually discuss this instead of come up here, okay, you got your 5 minutes, shut up and sit down.
I
This
don't
is an
think we told
extensive
anyone to
subject.
shut up and sit down, sir.
Well, when 5 minutes is over, you want us to be quiet. You sure want to stand to be quiet and get out of here. We need a town hall where we can actually discuss this and bat this back and forth. This is not a small deal. So I'm saying you shouldn't vote on this tonight. You should put it off and you should schedule some special meetings so we can have a discussion format and people who have educated themselves pretty much to the level of some of the city officials can have the time to bring forth things, and other people can be notified and told that, hey, big deal, your money's going out on this thing, and it's going out, you, your kids, your grandkids, whoever lives here for 50 whole years is going to be paying out, whether you think it's money out of your pocket or not. When they start having to pay $1.85 for imported water to replace this 525 acre feet of water, they're going to think it's a big deal, and it's going to happen in about 2 months. It's going to start happening. So we need to talk about it. We need to not pass this tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I did want to throw up, because a couple of people have asked about the cost of the facility, so I went ahead and looked it up. And when Provost and Pritchard came the last time, which was back in 2017, they estimated that this city site would cost $57.5 million, and the Navy site would cost $50.6 million. So I just wanted, but that was again back in 2017, which had increased up 15% from the previous estimates of $44 million and $50 million. So.
Okay, sir.
Good evening again. Eric Bruin, 208 Barbara. Let's have some optimism. Let's try that. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. Okay? Kyle Lombardi thanks you. Shelby Hagenauer thanks you. The staff of Kevin McCarthy's office thanks you. I thank you. Previous council members thank you. Wastewater has been talked about in this city for a decade. To say we haven't had a discussion until tonight seems a little exaggerated.
I think 12 years.
12 years, 2008, right?
Okay.
Well, bottom line is over a decade. I'll rescind my words for over a decade. The bottom line is I know for the last 15 years, when I've been traveling back in at least the last 10, every single year, one of the conversation pieces has been the wastewater plant. So, Navy, thank you. Thank you for getting us to the point of resolution. Thank you for seeing this to the point that we can move forward. We love to sit around here and once again naysay every single positive thing we can possibly do in the spirit of we need more information, a public vote, a this, a that. Move forward. Congratulations, council. You have an agreement. You have an easement. You have the problem solved. I commend you. Congratulations.
On behalf of staff and all, we say thank you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay. Is there any council comment? Okay, motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Just a second.
Mike, are you there?
Ron, it's you. Ron, on the water we get from the base, how much do we get from the base, and what we need extra water above what we're giving them back?
Assuming that about 200 acre feet more, then their average is about 720. Yeah.
So we have a net gain.
Yeah, we're gonna have a net gain with 200 acre feet.
So I just wanted to bring that point out, and someone was starting to make the motion, but go ahead and make the motion, and I will second it.
It's already done. You made the motion, didn't you?
Yes. You didn't read it, but you said it. Make a motion.
Should we read it? I'll read it. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 20-XX, resolution of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest to approve a 50-year land easement between the City of Ridgecrest and the United States government, parentheses Navy, for approximately 360 acres of Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake, NAWSCL.
I second it.
Mayor Braden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes, 1 abstention. Motion does carry.
Okay. Now, we can't let Kyle in yet because that's still the next item is the Navy. So, Kyle, thank you. I know you can't hear us, but thank you for staying out there. Okay, it's a resolution to approve a 10-year contract between the City of Ridgecrest and the United States Government Navy for the city to provide wastewater treatment service to the Navy at Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake. Mr. Strand.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. What I have before you is a new 10-year service contract between the City of Ridgecrest and the United States Government Navy for the city to provide wastewater treatment services to the installation at China Lake. Previous resolution item was a new easement agreement, and with that new easement agreement triggers a new service contract for wastewater services. So this new contract is a 10-year agreement. It's the maximum that the Navy can enter into. Just a couple points, important points of the agreement. In this agreement, the Navy agrees to be a regular rate-paying customer, and they also agree to comply with all applicable federal, state, and local pretreatment requirements. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Council?
I had, because we know that there has been some issues with pretreatment, what happens now in the meantime while they're trying to figure that out? Are we charging more because the stuff coming in is bad, or how does that work?
What's happened is the Navy has provided us a timeline on their efforts to pre-treat. We're also in the process of hiring a consulting firm. This was a firm that helped us with the negotiation process, a firm called Larry Walker, and they specialize in developing pre-treatment programs. So the city is going to have to update our ordinance regarding pre-treatment. We'll have to establish a pre-treatment program and then provide it to the Navy. And so that's what we'll be working on over the next couple of years. And that will assure that when the new plant's built, the Navy will be pre-treating, and then we will be receiving a influent from them as well as our other customers that is sufficient for our plant. In other words, not going to create damage to the plant. It's not going to provide a risk to our employees. And then the byproduct will not have certain constituents in there that are controlled through the EPA and the California Lahontan Board of Water. So we'll make sure that all those constituents are where they need to be, so we can stay in compliance with our wastewater permit.
Okay. And then one other thing is we have continuously heard throughout, even before tonight, that they're not paying their fair share. So can you explain how you feel like they're for sure paying their fair share? And I know you touched a little bit on it earlier, but just if you could, it kind of got cut off because you were kind of getting there where you're talking about the CAFR and the intake of impact fees and such.
Yes, in 2014, we went through a 218 hearing. That hearing was based upon an engineering report. It turns out that that engineering report had made a mistake when it made the assumption that, or actually, here, included.
When you touch it, it might make it go on and off somehow.
Okay. I don't know. It's all going to be upgraded next month, so we're going to be all new stuff here.
Thank
So I don't have to
goodness.
tolerate it no more. So in 14, we went through the rate study process, the engineering. When the Navy reviewed our rate study and the rates that were established, they had discovered that we had included the Navy's cost in our personnel operation maintenance costs of the maintenance of our sewer system in town. And so went back to the consultant that did the study. They took out that amount and then came back with a new rate scale that increased the Navy's rate over the next 5 years. So I do know that we do want to go back and do another rate study. I think the appropriate time to do it is when the new plant's built, and then we can move forward.
And the Navy has already agreed to that.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
And how much does a new rate study cost? Is there a reason? I guess that's the other question I have. Is there a reason to only do one that far down the road? Because we're talking maybe 6 years or so down the road. Is there a reason not to do one sooner?
I think we're sufficient to where we're currently at in review. I do believe the Navy is close to paying what it costs us to process their influent. Is it exactly equal? I'm not 100% sure. I do know it's very close. And so, yeah, there'd be a cost, but you're also looking at the study that's going to include a review of all of the other rates within the community. How does that reflect to the money that we're bringing in for the new plant? How is that going to affect that? I don't think the cost benefit analysis meets that. I mean, I think we're better to spend our time with the consultants designing the new plant and moving the process forward so we can build a new plant. I know right now we have a healthy reserve, we have a healthy down payment that we can make. So we're getting close. We're not going to have to borrow a significant amount of money, and I think that, you know, I would like to be able to hire Capital Corps to help us find some grants to be able to reduce that cost even more. I'd like to engage, you know, Congressman McCarthy's office to see if we can get some additional funding. I know that in a letter from Senator Feinstein, you know, she felt in that letter that we should, you know, get some funding to help us build the plant because it was on the Navy property. So we're going to pursue that. And so I think if I have time, I think we're better off. Our dollars and cents are better off focusing on that at this point in time. Because otherwise, we're just going to get mired down into a rate study, you know, and it's going to drag us down a rat hole for 6 months.
And we don't even have our total costs yet. It would be smarter to do a rate study after we know what our costs are.
Right. I mean, we know what our costs are currently.
Approximately.
We know what our costs are for what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But we're also, you know, we also spent, you know, we're spending $500,000. We'll get most of that reimbursed from the state on the inspection of our sewer lines after the earthquakes in July of 19. So, you know, we have that money that's been out there too. So we're also looking at, in the meantime, moving forward with our sewer line rehabilitation project. We got the next phase of that. So we have a lot of stuff that's on our plate to get tied into that and get sucked into that. I don't think the you know, if the Navy's a little bit low, I don't think it's worth the time to go after it. They may be paying equal. I don't know.
Is there any other questions from council? Mike? Any questions from the public? Any call-ins? If you want to call in, please do so now. Go ahead, Stan. We don't see any calls. Thank you.
Stan Rotora. Did I read something in the contract that said that the price or the cost that the Navy was paying, the rate, would be constant for 10 years and that we couldn't increase it?
No way. That's not in there.
Oh.
So if we have a Prop 218 cost analysis and hearing, they would be obligated to go with it?
Yes.
And it's not one of those things that they can do it if they want to, or they can object to it and go to court, or we have to arbitrate. They will just do it.
Well, if we're not fair and they believe that we're inappropriate in our assumptions, yes, they can dispute it. Absolutely, just like any other ratepayer can.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry, Ron.
Yes, they can dispute it like any other ratepayer. If they believe that the process that we took was inappropriate, yes, they can dispute it like any other ratepayer within the city.
Is this Prop 218 hearing going to happen before the next 10 years?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes, it will.
One of the things you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago is that the Navy is paying for the treatment of the water, that is the operation and the maintenance treatment, and I totally agree with that. Problem, of course, is that somebody has to pay for the facility, that is the capitalization. And I'm sure you've read the rate study, you understand that the capital cost was much more significant than the operation and maintenance cost. And that's the thing that was totally ignored when that rate study was corrected. The rate study, you just admitted a second ago, was flawed. We had egg on our face. The Navy didn't actually have to try very hard to find the problem. They came back to us and we looked pretty bad. But in the end, it turns out now they're not paying their share of the capital cost. And And I don't understand why, if we're partnering with them, or if we're even, if they're paying us to do their job, we have to have a facility to do it. They should be paying for the facility capital costs just like every other ratepayer. And as I pointed out, right now, they are paying 18%, not 28%. And at some point in time, our ratepayers deserve to have an even break. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment?
So is that true, Ron, that they're not helping to pay for the new facility, or how does that work?
I do believe their part of their money is paying for the sinking fund. I believe the cost for the facility is 1.2 million. I think it is, Bard. I think it's 1.2 million to run the plant, and I think they're paying anywhere between 600 and 700,000 a year, depends upon their volumetric amount.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, Mike Neal. Okay, you've heard a lot from Stan, all of which I agree with, more particularly the numbers and the revenue from the Navy for this plant. And it's a little hard to disagree with as far as the actual numbers. I've looked at those, and it looks like that what we should be getting from the Navy instead of the $942,000 is about $1.5 million. Well, like I said before, what's fair to the people of Ridgecrest? Is it fair to the people of Ridgecrest to be missing out on $500,000 here? You know, we just talked about the land easement and the loss of money to people there, and that was passed. So, you know, you pretty much almost locked yourself into this one, except that you can charge a fair rate to the Navy, just like you know, for sure charged us plenty, and you raised our sewer fees years ago over a lot of objection, and you're taking in a lot more money than you really even need to be taking in, and now it looks like giving the Navy a big break on this. And you're sitting here, you know, coming up with these numbers saying, well, you know, how old was the last rate study? Years ago. Why in the world don't we do a rate study before we make an agreement like this and get some solid numbers? I don't see any way, if I was sitting up there in the dais, that I could possibly vote to pass this and agree to this tonight, because the complete job that needed to be done before we negotiated a contract and came up with real numbers to negotiate to wasn't done. It just simply wasn't done in that respect. And, you know, it's you guys' job to get the best, the most fair deal for your constituents in Ridgecrest. Your constituents are not the Navy, they're Ridgecrest. And shorting us $500,000 a year is not a good deal.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there any other comments? I'm assuming, because I see no calls up there, that nobody wishes to call in. Please, if you're going to call in, do so shortly. Thank you.
I didn't get shut off.
Pardon me?
Oh, I've been trying to shut the mic off when she wipes it, so it doesn't.
Oh. Well, it's Eric Bruin, 208 Barbara Avenue. Oh, once again, here's some optimism. We've heard the other side, so let's talk about the positive side. Once again, we have an opportunity to move forward. Isn't that nice? The idea that we're actually getting a project moving forward. I do want to throw out a couple points, just keep them back in your mind, things that we need to consider. Mr. Strand, thank you very much for making the rat hole idea of, if we keep going around in circles, we're just going to keep burying ourselves in more muck. Push it forward. Thank you very much, sir. I do find it a tiny bit ironic that we can have this discussion, but we couldn't have another discussion with estimates or projections or other information. Just pointing that out. We could have had another discussion. And then finally, I believe that the recent rate compensation survey indicated that wastewater personnel was substantially under market by in the 20% range. Is that?
We're going to talk about that in the Finance Committee report.
Is that accurate? Is it not? And I just want to make sure that we have that as an awareness. And one of the things that we might want to have a conversation with the Navy in advance is if there's the possibility of having a retroactive action if the wastewater plant takes over 3 years to construct or to complete design build, something to that effect that would allow us to look at the recuperative value potentially. I don't know. It's worth throwing out there as a possibility, depending on the amount of time it takes for that 218 to come back around for us to look at that value proposition. But once again, with 3 minutes and 12 seconds, I would love to just tell you how happy I am, because I do not represent all of the citizens of Ridgecrest. I am just myself. But after 10 years of work, 12 years of work, over a decade of work, thank you for pressing this forward finally. We obviously need a new wastewater plant. 1976, guys. 1976 born, 44 years old. Here, 4 children, trying to run for mayor, everything else. Come on, guys. It's old. It needs replacement. Let's stop fighting and move on. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I see no call-ins, so is there any other discussion here from the council?
I just wanted to clarify to Ron that this service agreement takes effect now. It's not once the new treatment plant comes on board.
Correct. Once it's signed, both agreements are in effect.
Okay.
That was by design.
Thank you.
Before we vote, Keith, can I ask a question? Did you hear Eric's comment about making some of those charges retroactive?
You can't.
You can't do that, can you?
Do that. No.
Okay.
I'll answer for Commander Benson because we broached that during negotiations, and the answer is no.
Okay.
Right, got it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, okay. All right. Is there a motion? I so move.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Were you going to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Second.
We're good.
We got it. It's up there.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Ms. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you all for major comments. I would just like to remind you that Mr. Mauer, because he has just had his surgery, is here, but he's leaving now, so he's going to, if anybody has anything, you can get in contact with him, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Mike, for doing this and being here.
Thank you. I'm going to go lay down.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night, Mike.
I think that's Mauer out, right?
Mauer out.
Okay.
Mauer out, yes.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the next item is committee reports. Finance Committee.
All right. So this one, we agreed to tag team on the,
You
yes.
bet.
So let me pull up. All right, so we met this week. The primary, and I think only real agenda item was the compensation study that has been, we've been waiting on. And so we had the group that was, had performed the compensation study. Was it Kaufman, I believe? Or
Koff and Associates.
Yeah.
Koff and Associates.
Kaufman Associates, yeah. And so they were online with us and gave an overview of the study. And so basically, it was presented as a like the first go around on review of it, and they did make some minor recommendations. So I'd made some notes, and I know the mayor has made quite a few notes. So basically, it was an overview of the salary ranges, and some of the recommendations were to address salary rates for classifications furthest from the median. So if there's, they rated the salaries where they stood on an average with, we had 12 cities, and I think 10 didn't provide sufficient data, so they used the 10 other cities, and so as a mean average to base our employees' salaries off of. And so it varied from, I believe, I didn't write down the percentages, but I think as high as 30-something% to
33%.
above in some, and I believe the low was 20. I don't want to get caught up on the numbers here, but there was a pretty big ratio. We were pretty good on some, but we're high on a few, and we're low on quite a few. And so they gave some recommendations to address those salary rates for the classifications, and to a second recommendation was no action plus or minus 5% from the median. So if a salary was within plus or minus 5%, no action, and possibility of freezing salaries of incumbents whose salaries are above the market. So that was kind of their main recommendations that they had given. So the goal is to review this, and then the next meeting, we're going to go into it in a little more depth and identify the individual salaries and where these highs and lows are, and how we as a city could go about bringing a balance back to it. And so there was a consensus amongst the various representatives from the unions and whether it was from the police department or in the public works, but everybody was chiming in on some of their thoughts on how we could go about doing that. The overall agreement or consensus I got out of it was that they want to see a plan. They want to see an action step to change and better the position that we're in, the position that they're in. The city loses employees from turnover, from not being consistent with the pay, the lack of a cost of living allowance, and I've had the numbers kind of moved around, but 10 years, I think, is the number that we're going with. And so, anyway, so like I said, the consensus was that these folks want to see a change. They don't want to be continuing on the path that we're on. I, for one, agree with that. I think that the city, we're going to see a lot more of this in the next upcoming council meetings. Well, how was I going to put it? The fact that we have to make a plan and have an idea of what it is that we're going to do, what our options are, making a change. I don't care if it's a little bit of a change. I think we need to make a change. If we can increase, whether it's on a salary basis, some of the employees voiced their preference on, an hourly wage benefit increase that benefits them more. Some, it was more of the benefits package, and if insurance was a more important factor to them. So we need to sit down as a city and figure out how and where we can come up with the money, fix things in-house, if it means tightening up the budgets or whatever it takes. I think we need to look at that. But I'll pass it over to the mayor to kind of give her take on it.
I was very, very concerned when I heard that our staff has not gotten a raise in 18 years. How many of you have not gotten a raise in 18 years?
10 years.
10.
I did, 10, right. You just said 10 and I said 18, sorry. And I can't imagine there's any of you who have not gotten a raise in that period of time. Granted, there's been some bonuses given, minimal, but bonuses given. We lose good people because they may love working here. They may love being in this community, but when you can make 30% more going somewhere else, we had some that were 30% off than what the average was in these, and when the cities were chosen because they were similar to us. They operated similarly to us. What made it most amazing is that we asked staff and the unions to help us come up with some cities that looked like us, that operated like us. And I am appalled that in 2002, Another comprehensive study was done on what is the comparison. I asked staff for that so we could look at it and see what it was, but I was told by them that a similar division of how much we make, how much our people make, and how much everybody else makes, that the percentages were pretty much the same. Now, how those were compensated back in 2002, I wasn't here. I don't know who was, but I can say that some of those employees were there, and they know that they expected us to take action. And I can't believe we can continue to tell them, we'll get to it, you know, we're just a low city, we don't have a lot of money, we don't have the opportunity. And you know what? We do, because our city is as good as our employees are. And if we can't compensate them fairly, you all expect to be compensated. I expect to be compensated in my job to tell our employees, I'm sorry guys, you don't deserve it. We don't have it. Well, you know what? We're going to have to, because we have good people who care and have stuck it out because they love what they do and they love being here. And when they talked, there wasn't a one of them who said, we know, as we said, there's not a pile of money sitting underneath that chair. They know that this has been difficult, and they're willing to work with us. And they aren't asking for 30% tomorrow, but we must have action and find it and compensate our people. I was so amazed that every one of them, every one of the representatives that were here, and there was probably, what, 20, 25 people? Something like that.
Approximately.
And every one of them said, we want to work with you, but don't expect us to take forever on this. We want action. We want a plan. And that is our job in the Finance Committee and our job in the city, to come up with a plan. How do we make that compensation happen that shows we truly care, that we understand they have been underpaid for a long period of time? Very few were paid. I think the most I saw was 4% above what the average of those cities was, and it wasn't very many. I think there was only 2 or 3 that had that. But we must take care of our people. You all expect to be taken care of. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect them to be taken care of. And it's our responsibility to make it happen.
I found my notes. I was with the numbers. I didn't want to. So I'll kind of go over it here just a little bit. This was a bit of an overview. So let's look here. So base salaries were 5.2% below market. Total compensation was 9.5% below, and benefits packages were less than average. City salary, and I do want to reiterate too, some of these numbers we don't look that bad on either, so we're not totally in the in the poorhouse on it. But the city salary maximum range was 14.8% above this average median to 32.7% below, which is that's a pretty high number. And that's where I was reflecting or talking about some of the action steps that the consultants recommended was like not doing anything if they were close to that median average, or freezing it if they were above it. Total compensation, including the benefit packages, that was 6.9% high to 30% below. Retirement CalPERS was higher than 9 of the 12 agencies, so we sat better in that in that point. That was one of the few. And let's see, and on an average, about $600 per month less than others toward the health benefits. So it basically boils down to salaries, health benefits, and identifying where to start, how to start, and how much do we have to start. But I do think the overall goal from the council should be to work with the finance company and our finance department to see where we stand on that. We talked about, of course, to be able to pay more, you got to have more revenues, and so we touched a little bit on that. Where are we going to bring in more, revenue and increased revenue in the city? So anyway, that's kind of where we sit. We're going to go back into this again next meeting, and we'll report back to everybody at that time. So,
are we going to post that online, the report, too? Can we post it somewhere?
The
study?
The study.
The study?
Yes.
Could be, isn't it on, is it online in the finance committee? Yeah.
Okay, it is. Okay, and then also, are we going to do a survey of our employees potentially to see to know the priority? Because you said some of them said health benefits were a priority, or salary increases, kind of to prioritize which area we target first.
Right. That I believe that's part of the subject of our next meeting.
That's what the representatives were saying, and they're going to talk to their people. So maybe we could do a survey, but I imagine those representatives, all the unions and the associations, will come back to us with their report too. I hate to take a long time to do a survey and then people say, well, I didn't get it or I didn't say, but they're talking to their unions and have the unions come back to us, their representatives.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item, the next committee meeting is infrastructure.
We meet this Thursday.
We didn't meet since the last, oh, we didn't, right, we're
Right.
meeting next, okay. And Mike is not going to be at that meeting, so I will introduce myself as Mike Maurer that next meeting. Okay, economic development, Lindsay and Kyle.
We have not met.
Quality of life.
We had a public meeting yesterday out at Kermagee Ball Field, and it was pretty successful. It was an interactive meeting where people came and voted with stickers. Thank you, Mayor Breeden, for coming out. So they were able to vote on features that they like to see, color schemes. We had a separate area for children as well to vote and survey if they knew how to swim or not, to help us with our grant application, because public participation is important. We have another meeting scheduled for November 2nd. Normally it's the first Tuesday, but because that's election day, we're bumping it to Monday instead. And that should be noticed next week by Narissa.
Lindsay, can you brief us a little bit on what that grant is at all, or should we wait till we get more information?
Right. Yes, so it's a statewide grant, and the way it works is the plan is we're going to apply for $8.5 million. The grant is either awarded in its entirety or not. So it's not like we're going to say we're going to apply to build a pool and then they come back and only give us half of that amount. Then the other thing that is the item, we will have it coming back the second meeting in November, because part of the application is that the city has to say that we're going to support it for 30 years. So it's important to know because as we keep hearing, we've heard about this cost, we've heard about other costs this evening, so making sure that we have the funds to do that. Otherwise, if we fail to fund it for 30 years, we would have to pay that full amount back. So it's important to make sure that we can make that commitment in good faith. And then the school district, I know they have it coming up on their agenda on the 27th to send a resolution in support of this as well. And I know we've received several other entities letters of support. The IWV EDC is also graciously offered to pay Councilman Hunsacker, who did their aquatic center
That isn't a councilman, that's a company.
Right,
Yeah,
it's a
just so you
company.
know.
It's very confusing, their name. But the company, to update so that they can give us an idea of costs and layout so that they can analyze what we can afford within that 8.5 million and then also maintenance costs for that. So that, is there anything else?
That answers. I didn't know if everybody knew about it, and I wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to hear
Doc
that.
Heyman, did you want to add?
There's some other, the grant is very specific in its writing on, it's to be in a lower income area of the city. It's to be in a,
Low park.
I'm sorry?
Low park.
Low park.
Acreage.
Acreage area, so, in an area of town where, that area of town doesn't have access or is close to, other parks. And then the aspect about the expansion of an existing park versus a
park that
an
already
area that has not been
Yeah.
designated as a park.
Right.
So there's a little bit to do on that end of it, which boils down to site selection. So we're limited on what areas in town would fit that niche that they have put as the parameters for this grant. But we do have places, and the grant writer has been successful in getting, I think it was 5 grants through other cities. He is very optimistic about our demographics and how we sit in this grant, and so they seem very, very optimistic that we meet a very high number of the points criterion for
And
meeting this
I think
grant.
you pointed this out too last night. You made this comment to somebody that one other thing that the grant writer said is they don't just take people's money and say, we're going to write this grant for you. They want to make sure that they're successful. And so they've had cities contact them and they basically said, don't even bother applying because you pretty much have no chance. Versus us coming along, they were like, we think your chances look pretty good and we're very impressed with where you're at in your process and it looks good for you getting this done on time. And so.
And he did reiterate that we have, all of our ducks in a row. We have the time, we've got the meetings forecasted, and so, and that's why I was saying earlier tonight that, waiting until, although I'd like to have, voted on it tonight, probably would have been good, but it does, on the other hand, it does not hinder this process whatsoever to look at this on our next meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
And we will still have, after we finalize the site selection, we'll still have another public meeting in the neighborhood of the site that we select.
Now I have a letter from a constituent that to the council that she asked me to read, so I'd just like to read it real quick so I follow through with her wishes. This letter says, I will not be able to go to the quality of life meeting tomorrow, but I decided to resurrect a letter I sent to each member of the city council over a year ago. We have just completed our 4th summer where there's not an avenue for all children in Ridgecrest to learn the life-saving skill of swimming. Please again read my email below. I understand that you are the city council representatives of this committee, so I would appreciate your forwarding my comments below to the quality of life committee on the topic. And so, let's see, I've been thinking about writing something to the Ridgecrest City Council for some time, and I decided that I needed to just make the time. Ridgecrest needs a community pool. They don't necessarily need a huge aquatic center, but they need a community pool, someplace where the children of Ridgecrest can go and learn to swim. We are in our 3rd summer where there is not an avenue for all children in Ridgecrest to be able to learn this life-saving skill. Before you counter that the base provides swim lessons, not everyone has access to the base. As a former water safety instructor, as well as instructor trainer, I may be biased, but knowing how to swim is probably one of the most important life skills a child needs to learn. No one ever died from not knowing how to play soccer, baseball, basketball, or football. I think that comes from a quote from one of our nation's top swimmers. She's an Olympian and world-level swimmer. She stated in a research article that I had reference to about the demise of public pools across the nation, and she stated in that report that no one's ever died from not knowing how to play basketball. And so I thought that was a pretty profound comment. So we're going here. A lot of money was spent on a splash pad. I was against this from the beginning because while yes, it provides a place to cool off, it teaches nothing we won't counter, I'll just read the letter. Playing at a splash pad will not teach you how to swim. Each of you have either been a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle to a child. Children need to learn to swim. This way, as they grow into adults, they will know how to swim. What a travesty that we are now in our third summer, now fourth, meaning we have children who have not had access to swim lessons. As they grow and get around water, they are at risk of drowning. The older they get, the less likely they will ever learn to swim. Decisions made affect each of these children's futures. I just pray that my concerns about potential loss of life due to not knowing how to swim because the lessons were not available do not come true. As I said, I would not hold out for a huge aquatic center. We just need a pool so that the children of Ridgecrest can learn to swim. A life-saving skill. Terry Mitchell. So anyway, I think that's kind of a really big factor in the pool is the
Learning how to swim.
Learning how to swim, for children. Not to mention all the other benefits for the swim team, seniors. The benefits go on and on. But
right,
anyway.
the high school.
Okay. So the next one is the RCVB, and they meet.
Yeah, there's no report on that.
Okay. And other committees, boards, and commissions. Anybody? I keep looking down there for Mike, and he's not there.
Are you covering KernCog for him, or did you, or?
It's generally the third week of the month.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so we'll hear from that.
All right. City manager's report.
Just one item. Mr. Lauer would like me to remind everybody that the infrastructure committee meeting tomorrow evening will be here in the council chambers and will be open to the public.
Future agenda items. Anybody? I think we've given our staff a whole lot to do right now. Okay, mayor and council comments.
Just want to say thank you for getting the contracts negotiated, Ron. I know that took a lot of time and effort, and so thank you for that.
I want to second that. Haven't seen our city manager and the amount of work and time and effort you've put into this. It's been extraordinary, and to the Navy for all their work and working on their end to see this through. It's been 12 years, and I think it's a fantastic thing to be accomplishing tonight, and thank you to everyone that's been involved in it.
Yeah, we can't forget about Bard. Bard was instrumental in helping with this also. We spent many hours, working through this.
Thank you. Okay, I say amen. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next meeting.
Good night, folks.